For our next presentation, TRIZ for Disruptive Innovation, I like to call upon Dr. Oleg Feygenson, TRIZ Master, Samsung Electronics, South Korea. A little bit about Oleg. Of course, our personal mentor. Dr. Oleg Feygenson is a principal engineer at Manufacture Core Technology Team, Global Technology Center of Samsung Electronics. Prior to Samsung Electronics, Dr. Feygenson worked for the largest TRIZ consulting company, Gen 3 Partners. As a senior principal and chief researcher at Gen 3 Partners, he managed dozens of successful innovation projects for world-class companies such as General Electric, Doosan Infracore, Unilever, Owens, Illinois, and others. Prior to Gen 3, he was an assistant professor with the Department of Electrotechnique and Electrotechnology at St. Petersburg State Polytechnic University, Russia. He was also a plasma physicist at Archimedes Technology Group, San Diego, United States. At the present, Oleg is a vice president and member of Presidentium of International Association of TRIZ, that's MATRIZ. He's also an academic secretary of TRIZ Master Certification Council of MATRIZ. Dr. Feygenson is the author of several United States and WO patents published over 20 states. Dr. Feygenson holds a PhD degree in plasma technology and a master's degree in electrotechnology from St. Petersburg University. And of course, our personal mentor and our teacher. Yeah, Oleg, so over to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. I don't have too much to add, actually. I'll start with my favorite joke now. I have been working for 5 years with Samsung Electronics in South Korea, and I do not look like Korean. And people ask, are you really from Samsung? And my answer is like that: yes, I am from Samsung and I am Korean. We just have a nice plastic surgery in our country. Okay, so the topic I would like to discuss today is TRIZ for Disruptive Innovation. I will start with definition, of course, and how Clay Christensen, the author of this concept, introduced this term disruptive innovation. We'll talk about some examples and typical mistakes that people make when they discuss this concept. Of course, we will arrive to the point when we talk about TRIZ as a method which can support, which can enhance disruptive innovations. I will give you very fresh, very nice case study, because what is happening in TRIZ conferences, very often we show retrospective examples or old examples, and there is a reason for that. Imagine I have a project at Samsung, I apply TRIZ, I cannot share that, right? It is very confidential. Or Alex, as a consultant, he has a project for his client in India or in the US, doesn't matter. He can't share this example because of confidentiality. So this case study, I am allowed to talk about this. It is a small startup company in Korea which produces this equipment called officizer. It is really fresh. It just appeared on the market. And together, we'll try to decide if it is disruptive innovation or not. I don't know personally. That will be a challenge for all of us. And we'll talk about disruptive innovations in big corporations, because usually disruptive innovations, they are expected from small companies that appear on the market and eventually substitute big companies with their products. And we will talk about some conclusions. For the last 15 years, every conference about TRIZ started with the slide, what is innovation? So I'll start my presentation with this slide, what is disruptive innovation? So any thoughts, any ideas? Because, you know, let us just speak openly, you know this term. So what do you think? Any ideas?
Exponential growth to the application.
Good. Exponential growth. What else? Good, also good, yeah. There are many things. If you Google disruptive innovation, you will see a lot of examples. Like this, Uber. Do you have Uber here in India? What do you think? Is it disruptive innovation or not? Okay. In Russia, we have Yandex Taxi. which is a big competitor of Uber. What they do, they reduce prices, they allow some free time of waiting, things like that. In Korea, we have Kakao Taxi, pretty much the same service. What do you think? Are those companies doing disruptive innovations against Uber? Yeah, so, but actually, if you read recent articles, not books of Clay Christensen, the author of this concept, he explains about Uber, and he doesn't consider Uber as a disruptive innovation. And we will discuss why. So basically, 4 years ago, this website, Tech Republic, suggested that this term, disruptive innovation, should be, we shouldn't use it. It is overused jargon. People misunderstood the concept, and everything, any breakthrough innovation is disruptive innovation, which is, according to Christensen, is not correct. And let us now define what disruptive innovation is. Historically, Clay Christensen, professor of business administration from Harvard School, introduced the term disruptive technology in 1995. In 2003, he decided to substitute this term with disruptive innovation. Why? Actually, he defined disruption as a process when a smaller company with less resources are able to penetrate the market and eventually substitute with their products or services big corporations. And Clay Christensen had recognized that technologies by themselves, they can be disruptive or sustaining, but it is a business model which makes disruption. So, for example, IBM didn't invent computers, but the business model of using personal computers was disruptive innovation. It is a business model. Or Apple didn't invent MP3 format for storing audio files, but iPod, that was business model behind using this technology. One important thing, the opposite to disruptive innovations, sustaining innovation. And according to Christensen, sustaining innovation when you take your good product and make it better. Disruptive innovation is when you have a product at the top market, at the high price, the product which requires special skills to use, and you make it maybe not that perfect, but you lower it down to mass production to make it available to everyone. So the final definition of disruptive innovation looks like this. In business, a disruptive innovation is an innovation that creates a new market and new value and eventually disrupt existing big players on the market. And there are two types of disruptive innovations. We may talk about low-end market, low-end footholds, and new market footholds. One very important thing on this slide, the term disruptive innovation cannot be considered in a certain point of time. If we see this technology or that technology right now, right here, we cannot judge if it is disruptive or not. It is always a process. We need to observe it over time, how it grows. As I said, I will use a couple of examples. This is the famous classical example of Clay Christensen, how disruptive innovation at low-end foothold happens. Toyota cars. In the 1970s in America, there were two main car makers, Ford Motors and General Motors. So, and they were so focused to serving the mainstream customer, the high-end market. They didn't really consider people who have less money, who usually buy used cars, but they may want to buy a new car. But these two big companies, they were so focused on sustaining innovation. They do their good products better and better. So, and when Toyota appeared on the market, they identified this segment. Cars were not that luxury, but even college students can't afford that. Ford and General Motors were so busy with high-end market, they didn't consider Toyota as a competitor. What is happening now? Toyota competes against Mercedes, BMW, not with General Motors or Ford. Then Korean cars, Kia and Hyundai, came to the market, and they kind of disrupted Toyota. Now Chinese cars, for example, Chery. This is the classical example of Clay Christensen. That's how it happens. It is a typical graphical representation of disruptive innovation. So you have your high-end market, you have your mainstream, and big players on the market, they're serving this segment. And then one company appears here to serve low-end market, and eventually it grows fast and pushed these big players from the market. And what I have said, it is always a process. When we are here at that time, at that level of performance, we cannot say if it is disruptive innovation or not. What is important as well, to find this point, we need some data. To make it moving in this trajectory, we need to have some theory. And I truly believe TRIZ is this kind of theory which can help. Why? First of all, TRIZ is based on data analysis, patterns, objective data. All TRIZ tools, classical tools of TRIZ like inventive principles, trends of engineering system evolutions, they derive from patterns. Nowadays, with the modern version of TRIZ, what Alex was speaking about before me, we have a number of project formats which can help us to do disruptive innovation. We have NPD, we have cost reduction, new market identification, IP strategies, which is also very important when you go to the market. So then, and my conclusion is that TRIZ definitely support disruptive innovations, and let me show you a few examples how it can be done with TRIZ. This is an example at new market footholds. That was 5 years ago in Austria. That was a big congress. It is called Smart Plastic Congress. And I was invited here as a speaker and facilitator of TRIZ workshop. Basically, smart plastic is a technology which allows you to interact with different devices. Few companies in Austria, they kind of created this congress and they said, everything we touch in our life very often is made out of plastic. So it's like a skin of devices. That would be nice to interact with these devices. So they have some electronic components there. They may provide some feedback to you, and they may send information and things like that. So this is smart plastic. They created this technology, and they wanted to find applications for that. They wanted to make some, disruptive innovations, find some business model where this technology will be appreciated. I think most of you are familiar with this trend of S-curve evolution. According to this trend, any system, doesn't matter, technical system, biological or social system, evolves according to this trend. Usually people consider 4 stages, first, second, third, and fourth one. In Gen 3 methodology, there is another stage, transitional stage, very important one. Let us talk a little bit about this stage. Just to give you an example of S-curve, this is how propeller airplanes evolved, and in 1988 they were substituted with jet turbines airplanes. Well, these planes, they exist in some market niches, but for public transportation we use different types of plane. Transitional stage. Together with people in Austria, we decided that smart plastic is exactly on this transitional stage. And this is the overview. First of all, it is the end of the first stage, which means system is ready to the market. It already appears on the market in some segments. It is not at the lab research level anymore. You can buy this system. Yeah, it is on the market. It is intense competition according to TRIZ methodology, but here we need to think. If it is a new market, we do not have similar technology to whom we compete. And if you think about that, at that time we had smartphones with touch screens. It is a competitor, voice control system. They were under development, also a competitor. So competition exists, you just need to identify those technologies which are competing. And these are recommendations of this stage. As soon as you understand that your system in the transitional stage, you should launch it as quickly as possible. Actually, it correlates very well with which Christensen said. He said, how he said? He said, it is better than nothing. So if nothing exists on the market, so you have some idea, push it. And all parameters should be acceptable. It should work. But one parameter of your system should be A+, winning parameter, something which will attract your customers. At this stage, you need to adapt resources and infrastructure. And big changes to your system are allowed except the action principle. Why? Because if you change the action principle, you go back to the first stage. So you lost all this time. So with smart plastic, let me give you an example as I promised. What you see on this picture, it is a trademark sensitive surface. They developed that for BMW car. So when you drive your car, you have this panel, you can control music, you can control air conditioner in your car. And what are the features? First of all, comparing with our smartphones, it is no-look operation. When I touch the screen on my smartphone, I should look at that. Here, you can make any shape. You don't need to look. You just use your finger and you control it. It can interact with the user. It can send you some tactical response. You push this plastic surface and you feel some feedback. There are no mechanical switches, no buttons, nothing. And also because it is a plastic, it is easy to make it self-healing and scratch-proof. That was a idea generation part of this workshop, and many ideas were generated. I can give you one example which I think is nice. When you drive your car with GPS navigator, you need to look on the screen. Okay, there is a left turn. Yeah, there is some voice notes also, but you lose your attention when you look on this GPS navigator. So when you drive, you always touch your driving wheel. It wouldn't be nice if you have this smart plastic surface in this driving wheel, and you need to make a right turn. It starts vibrates under your right hand, and the closer you go to the turn, the more vibration you feel. And there is additional super effect. You keep both of your hands on the driving wheel, so it's safe driving. Okay, so new, fresh example, officizer. My good friend in South Korea, Dr. Yusin Han, he's now a CTO of this company. And as I said, I met him a few days ago, and first product already launched. It is on the market. Officizer, actually a combination of two words, office and exerciser. You may think about that. It's something which allows you to do physical exercises in the office. Background of this project. According to American Labor Bureau, this is the statistics of daily life of American people from 25 to 54 years old with kids. So most of the time they spend in the offices working 8.8 hours. They have some other things. They have for sport and leisure only 2.6 hours a day, statistically. Even more terrible statistics. It is according to Federal Transportation Administration. How many minutes a day an average American person walks? Just go somewhere. Only 8 minutes. If you have your connection flight and you travel from one terminal to another terminal, you spend more time walking than average American spend a day, 19 minutes. But it is still not enough. It is recommended to walk at least 22 minutes a day to stay healthy. This is the problem. And there are some existing solutions. So standing desk or bike desk. I can tell you I was using this desk. They were popular in Korea a few years ago. My personal feeling, it is not that convenient. If I'm staying all the day, then I have some pain in my back. I didn't like this. Okay, bike desk. Well, first of all, it is more expensive. Second, it may generate some noise. And office doesn't really look like an office. It looks like a gym. So that is why, I don't think there's a big future of this product. Now, Han Yusin, he's a TRIZ practitioner level 4. He did carefully analysis. This is the time analysis. He said, okay, we have this long time when we work, when we sit in our office. Can we walk when we are working in the office? Space resource. Where we can exercise. Actually, we have this area under our desk. Our legs are always there. Maybe we can put something there and do some exercises. That was kind of, identification of a need. And this is how the final product looks like. There are two pedals which you install under your desk. You may use a single pedal and put the bigger platform on the top, and you use it as a serve. And I would like to show you a short video to explain how it works. Could you please help me? Yep. There is also nice music. So you see, you can bend it in any direction, like this, like that. And this is the single pedal. It is very important. They understood MPV, what Alex said, noise. If you use it in the office, it should not be noisy. It should not, do something bad for your neighbors in the office. Another MPV they introduced, the trend actually. Now everything is getting smarter and smarter. We use, connections with our smart devices. It is a good idea to use a part of your fitness bracelet and put it there. Okay, thank you very much, Narayan. Yeah, now this product is out of crowdfunding. They were in Indiegogo, they were in Kickstarter, and they produced a couple of devices like that. So now let us, as I promised at the very beginning, let us discuss if it is disruptive innovation or not. You see, it is a very simple product by itself. It is just a pedal which you install. It is nothing to compare with Toyota cars or with Apple iPod. But if we think about that, the first question I would ask, what market it serves? If you think about sport equipment, we have very nice, very expensive professional sport equipment. Very expensive, very nice. And there are big companies in this business. They produce expensive bikes, expensive, golf equipment and so on. There is a mainstream like public fitness centers, but there is nothing in the market of personal sport equipment which can be used occasionally. I'm not talking now about this specific exerciser, but this niche is definitely exists. And as I said, disruptive innovation is always a process. This niche was identified, and now we need to see how it grows, how companies, not necessarily a exerciser again, but some similar devices will fit this niche. Another question, who are the customers? We have professional sportsmen who are happy with their expensive equipment. We have fitness lovers, and we have office workers. And remember, according to the statistics, they do not have time to exercise. Maybe it is, the way to make them happy and go disruptive. A few words about big companies, because as I said, usually when we speak about disruptive innovation, we think about some startups, some small companies with fewer resources which penetrate the market and grow. Remember, with General Motors and Ford, they didn't consider Toyota as a competitor. They were busy with serving their best customers. Same is happening with many, many companies around the world, like Sony, a Japanese company. You remember 10, 15 years ago, you go in any hotel in the world, you see Sony TV. Now, Samsung or LG. So why? Again, because those big companies, they are so busy serving their best customers. At Samsung, people recognize that if we are not taking care of this low market segment, we will be disrupted by some small Chinese companies or big Chinese companies. That is why a few years ago, this structure, which is called Creative Lab, C-Lab, was established at Samsung. It is for startup thinking. It is for changing the mind. So any engineer at Samsung may submit his or her idea there, request some budget, and form a team. And it is like a startup inside Samsung. So it is kind of disrupting our own business in a way. Last year, 7 projects were launched successfully. They are now independent startups, and later, if they are successful, that may be, return to Samsung. Now I would like to make some conclusions. First one, I started with that very often nowadays the concept of disruptive innovation is misunderstood. Even with Uber, this example, if you read last article from Clay Christensen, he explicitly explains it is not a disruptive innovation because it doesn't serve new customers. Those customers are the same. Those people who use taxi, now they use Uber. Just more convenient way of using the same service. Again, for disruptive innovation, first we need to understand where we are, at which stage of a curve, what value we can deliver to the customer, but it is just a single point. We need to have a theory which can help us to develop our technology and apply business model which will make it disruptive. And TRIZ, as I said, is perfectly good for that. In TRIZ, we have a number of analytical and problem-solving tools, and moreover, we have special project types which are specifically designed for these types of innovations. And in big corporations, I think it is important, and with this example of C-Lab, I think you understand that some big companies are taking care of that. Thank you very much for your attention. I will be happy to answer your questions. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Gautam Doshi from IMTMA. I have a different view of Uber. May not be exactly what Mr. Christensen, Professor Christensen said. Uber in Pune is disruptive.
Who?
Uber in Pune is disruptive. Uber technology, Uber in Pune is disruptive because we didn't have taxis.
I understand.
So we had only auto rickshaws. So it has disrupted the whole auto rickshaw business because there was no taxi.
Okay.
So disruptive can be disruptive in some places and in some markets and in different markets.
That is a perfect comment. Thank you very much. And I just want to add something. Of course, when we are talking about any innovation, we should understand to which market we are developing this innovation. It's not only low-end or high-end, also it is by region. Because something which is happening in India is not the same to what is happening in Russia. So, thank you very much for your comment.
I have one question about it. As you said, initial stage, and there is a transitional stage, where the initial cost of research may be very high for certain innovation. Yeah. How TRIZ helps to address the trimming of the initial cost? Because initial research, by the time product is launched, competition also may have to catch up because they will have readily available data and they will try to imitate or come with the similar product.
Yeah.
And the market position will be diluted. So how TRIZ can address this kind of problem?
Thank you very much. Also good question, and I believed Alex did my job. He answered that. For example, you have very expensive product at the first stage. It is not affordable to many people. You need to reduce cost. trimming, feature transfer, cause and effect chain analysis. All these tools can really help you to reduce your cost and plus add some functionality maybe if it is needed and move your product to the market. Yeah. Okay? There is one question. Yeah.
My name is Oleg. I'm from Korea. And I want to ask you how you relate TRIZ with open innovation?
With open innovation, also very good question, because what is open innovation? You have your problem, you publish it, and many people start reply, and you collect best ideas. In TRIZ, we have function-oriented search, right? When you generalize your problem, and now, I think function-oriented search, it is like a language for open innovation. You can really navigate any industry with this generalized search. And to me, I love FOSS. A lot of my projects, maybe 80% of my projects are about function-oriented search. And this is a perfect connection with open innovation. Function-oriented search makes it more predictable, more effective. Yeah. All right? Yeah, thank you very much for your attention.